If you look at my phone, 10 minutes before I walked in here, I called up Hulk Hogan, who's been a client for almost 20 years. Had back surgery, he's healing, it's been all over the world news. 3 times on the call we say, I love you. Not a single word about business.
Wow.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Because if you build that personal trust and that bond and respect, you find out about their likes, their dislikes. You're there for them when they're struggling in life. You're there cheering when things are good. You find out about their families, their special interests, their hobbies, and you pay attention to that stuff. It's super easy.
Darren, thanks so much for joining me on the show today, man. Fantastic time having you in here. Can't wait to jump into some stuff.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yes, sir, of course. So, man, so many things. We're going to talk more about this book, but before we get too, far into the conversation, I want to highlight this for a second, make sure everybody listening or watching knows about it. So, Aiming High, How a Prominent Sports and Celebrity Agent Hit Bottom at the Top. It is a bestseller now that you came out with, and I just want to shout that out here at the beginning so that everybody can go jump on that before we get into the rest of the interview. So let's talk about how this book came about, and back very, very, very beginning here, and talk about the entrepreneurial journey that you've been on. Do you believe, Darren, that entrepreneurship is something that's born, or do you think it can be taught? Because it seemed like you just had that, whatever it was.
I think it's a little bit of both. I wasn't the best student.
Okay.
Like my friend Gary, he talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
School wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. And my dad found something special in me when it came to numbers. I was a statistical genius, looking at baseball cards and everybody's batting average and RBIs and home runs and minor leagues, runs batted in, all that stuff.
Was that numbers in general or just
numbers in general?
Okay.
And I was obsessed with collecting baseball cards as a kid.
Okay.
And I was challenged in my intro to business class by a teacher, Elliot Lovey, who I'm still close to this day. He wanted everybody to go home and create this fantasy business. And I created this baseball card company in my mind.
Talk about a
fantasy
fantasy
business.
business.
Which actually I made come to fruition.
And that was intro to business in high school?
In high school, 14 years old.
14 years old. So 14 years old, you get this, you weren't even thinking about turning it into a real business until you had this class. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you say you have a good relationship with him now. What's the dialogue between you and him now, like him being able to see where you've gone in your career?
He said he always knew something was special about me, that I lacked a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-worth. I acted like I never fit in. But when he had me one-on-one, he said, I just saw something in your eyes that were magical, that was different, that you were going to be a game changer in everything that you ever did.
So talk to me ins and outs of the baseball card business. What did you actually do? How did you?
It was an amazing time in my life, man. I was a superstar at the top of an industry that just came out of nowhere, and having no idea how to handle it as a teenager. There was me, this guy Alan Rosen, Mr. Min, who was the most iconic name in the industry, and we had celebrities, rock stars. I mean, everybody coming to collect these rare vintage cards because the investment potential was tremendous. And I just started going to trade shows, and I would buy a Mickey Mantle rookie for $5,000 because I knew that week I had an investor on Wall Street that was paying me 10. So I was just buying, flipping.
14, 15.
Yeah, by the time I was 16 years old, I think I was probably making about $400,000 a year.
How did you stay at all engaged in school?
It was tough. I had a couple of my big Italian friends that I would pay in between class. I was the only guy I knew that had a cell phone. The company was called Bell Atlantic back then. Had this big metal aluminum weight on the bottom with a rubber antenna, and it was $3 a minute to use the phone. My dad flipped when he saw the first bill, but then he smiled when he saw how much money I made that month to understand that I could afford it. And so these guys would stand in front of my locker in between class. It was crazy. It'd be like I'd be calling John Smith, so-and-so, Smith Barney, Wells Fargo.
These are friends of
yours? I want this card, I want that card. And it was in between class. I'd be grabbing my phone out of my locker. Wow. And, but when I look back at that time, you hear about all the success that I could talk about, but I just never felt worthy of it at the same time.
Yeah.
It was like everybody wanted to, you see what Darren's doing? I just never felt like...
Just imposter syndrome creeping up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think that there's a real way to deal with that? I feel like there's so much talk about it, especially, I don't know what it is nowadays. I guess just the internet's around, so more people know that it's a term. But when you're 15, 16 years old, you don't really know all the terms or what exists out there. You just have this feeling, this inner feeling of, I'm not good enough. And even though it appears externally that everything's going okay, internally something's not going right.
I had that learning disability that I was told I was classified with as a young kid.
Okay.
And I think it was always in my soul, in my gut. And from not speaking up, I felt, let me just show the world that I could do this and I can do that. And but it wasn't authentic. I was always looking for an outside fix that was an inside job. And when I speak to high school kids, they're my favorite audience out of any, because I tell them, don't be Darren Prince. Speak up. Don't put a substance in your system just to fit it. Speak up right now. Guidance counselor, teacher, friend, family member, because you'll save yourself years of hell.
What besides that would you tell yourself as a 15-year-old kid?
You are enough, because I see the way I'm treated in the world today. And I don't need to tell people how great I am. I don't need to tell people I'm the best. I don't need to tell my celebrities or friends or anybody new I'm hanging out with who I am, because I think in 50 years young, the legacy I've created for myself by being true to who I am has become reality. I think people that have to talk too much about themselves, they're not that exact person.
So how does like a 15, 16-year-old who doesn't know the future, right? Like, so here right now you can easily say, hey, it's worth it, right? But if you're 15, 16, you don't know what the future holds for you and you're still in that mindset of, I have this disability or I have this other obstacle that's going to keep me from being this version of myself that I ultimately want to be. How do you deal with that when you're that young and still be able to come out of it without going down other paths like you did in terms of like going down and trying to fix that problem with external substances?
I was at the White House on October 24th of 2018 when President Trump signed the historic $6 billion opiate epidemic bill. So it's funny you bring that up. I pulled Kellyanne Conway aside and Governor Christie. My book just became a bestseller then, and she thanked me for my service in writing it. And I said, do you want to change the trajectory of all these high school kids across America? I'm going to give you one thing that's going to change addiction, mental illness, self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence forever. Start implementing in every high school a class about self-worth, self-esteem, about being good enough. Because I don't care if it's the jock, if it's the geek, if it's the nerd, everybody's got something that they're taking out there into the real world because we're not comfortable enough to talk about it. I can't imagine if I had a class at 15 years old that was about that, how everybody all of a sudden becomes one.
Yeah.
And the bullying goes away,
Right.
and she's like, this is like brilliant, when I'd like you to come back up here and maybe, we can talk about this in the new year. So it's something I would love to sit down with them about because it's that simple of a fix.
Yeah, well, it normalizes it,
Yep.
right? Because especially when you're that young, I say that now, but even as, I'm 27, even coming into adult life, it still feels like that, sometimes like you're the only person that could possibly know what you're going through.
Yep.
And it's just not true. It's just not true. Almost every single human being that you meet, has their own internal stuff that was caused by who knows what, society, culture, like what you were saying, people telling you that you were not capable of something when you were that young, and you believe everything when you're that young. And there was something like that just made the conversation okay, where you don't feel like you're going to get picked on if you tell somebody that you're going through this thing in your head, right? So coming out of that, you obviously didn't have that class. So talk to us about the drug addiction that started at such a young age from that.
So it started at 14 years old in sleepaway camp. I had horrible stomach pains one night, and I told the counselor I had to go to see the nurse. So she gave me this green liquid in a plastic cough syrup cup, and I took it. It was disgusting. I gagged. And 5 minutes later, I'm walking across the softball field, and my life changed forever. Every one of those inadequacies and insecurities went away like that, and now I was on top of the world. I think about it to this day. It shows me that I'm still such a hardcore junkie because I can get chills thinking about that feeling. That's how much it changed my life. Yeah. And I got back to the bunk. I was the cool guy, the popular one, the talkative one. The first time
Cracking
ever
jokes,
I started.
people laughing.
Yeah, exactly. I was the popular one.
Yeah.
There was like 30 teenage girls in the bunk next to me. I could never talk to girls.
Yeah.
I just walked into the front of the bunk and they're looking at me and I said something. I don't know what it was. Everybody's laughing with me, not at me.
Yeah.
And I went to bed that night thinking nothing of it. The next day, did all my activities. That next night, I'm lying in the bunk with no stomach pain, and I'm looking up at the sky and like just daydream. I was like, oh my God, that feeling was amazing last night. How do I get more of it? And I learned to lie, con, cheat right then in that moment. I went over the counter, healed over. I said, my stomach is killing me, Mom, I got to go back. And did this for 3 straight weeks, every night, until my mom and dad came up for visitation day and found out I was taking liquid Demerol.
What a horrible counselors and nurses keeled over in pain as a teenage
They
kid
sent me to
from
the hospital
stomach.
a couple times.
Oh,
Yeah,
I did.
And, they just said it was nervous anxiety, upset stomach, and I guess back then Demerol, you were allowed to give it.
That's crazy. Just like, here's some Demerol, go to sleep. Wow. So you leave camp now having experienced this,
Yep.
right? Which is, like you said, literally a life-altering experience. Because up to that point, there was never that inner peace,
Yep.
right? There was never that like calm that came when you took some liquid magic, right?
Yep.
So then you get back, you have to get your wisdom teeth pulled.
Yep.
So you go back in to the doctor, and this time they give you something in the form of a pill.
Yep.
So can you walk us through then that next part?
So my mom gives me 2 of the pills when I got back from the dentist, and I had no idea what it was. I was in pain, and that same feeling came back. I couldn't understand it. I was like, how could the green liquid and the white pill have the...
Right.
But I don't want to say anything, so I'm lying in bed. I'm calling up my boys and a couple girls that I was friends with, and the same thing. I'm just diarrhea of the mouth and talking, and all these amazing ideas that I have for my life and business and my goals. And 3 days later, I think the pills were gone. So I only knew one thing to do, and it was that night I went downstairs to my mom, holding my cheek and crying.
Wow.
And what mother wants to see their child suffer?
Do you remember how long the original prescription was supposed to last you?
It lasted as long as it was supposed to, because she wouldn't let me take them on my own.
Got it.
Yeah, my mom was obviously paranoid at that point because of the Demerol situation. She knew something was up with me.
Yeah. But at the same time, like you said, as a mom, you don't want to just watch your kid just be in pain all the time.
And she takes me to the dentist, and I lied and conned and did everything I needed to do, and he gave her another 3 days. So.
How long did you have to keep coming up with reasons to be able to go back and get some more painkiller? Because you're in high school, right?
Yeah.
So like you can't just...
That only happened once.
Okay.
But a few months after that, I started my business. So now it was real dangerous. I was making money.
Gotcha.
So I was buying them on the
So now you're
streets, or
bankrolled.
I was paying friends to take them from their parents' medicine cabinet that might have had surgeries, and I was the only one that could afford it.
Gotcha. So coming into that addiction now, in hindsight, what would you say to somebody who's facing something like that? If they're, to be clear, they're not yet to the point where you feel like it's a sickness, right? But they're at that very beginning stage, and maybe they're not even aware of it. Like, what would you say to somebody that's in that position, that's just like starting to dabble in these things, and you know where that path leads? What would you say to somebody like that?
My dad always used to tell me when I was experimenting a lot with drugs and partying, like, why can't you just look in the mirror and feel good enough? I never understood. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course I feel good enough. I like taking, I just like the feeling.
Yeah.
Until I got sober, I didn't realize that he was 100% spot on. Because I'm pretty willing to bet this building I live in and most of this city, there ain't no more real person out there than me.
Yeah.
More authentic, more comfortable in his skin.
Yeah.
Right now, because I've truly found Darren Prince at 49 years old. And it's just such a gift, I can't even explain it to you.
How do you deal with knowing that probably your greatest strength now comes from your greatest weakness before, in terms of like regret? When you look back, is it like, man, I regret doing that from day one? Like, if I could go back, I would change it 100%? Or would you change it because that's kind of what's turned you into being the person that you are?
I wouldn't change a thing. I put a post up the other day on Instagram, and I got a ton of inboxes that was just about that. I don't regret a single thing. It worked out perfectly, the exact way God wanted it to work out. Because like I said, at 49 and I'll be 50 in 5 weeks, most people I know can't say what I can tell you about myself, that I can look in the mirror and love everything about myself and who I'm trying to be, who I evolve to be. When I make mistakes, it's a better quality of a mistake. I try to grow. I try to change behavioral patterns. If I need to. Just very accountable. I talk about the 5 A's: attitude adjustment, accountability, action, and acceptance. And I put all 5 of those together. And it's just been amazing.
So let's move into more of the professional career here. So despite the drug abuse in the background, you seem to be doing pretty well for yourself, right? So making $400,000 as a sophomore or junior in high school, whatever you were, is obviously a fairly decent start to a good financial journey ahead of you. You said your dad was a business person, so he saw something that was happening there, right? Like he was smart enough to be able to look at what you were doing and be like, oh, okay, this is like real money. Because I assume that industry back then would be kind of like what social media and online marketing
And
is
sneakerheads.
now. Yeah. So where like parents are just like, I don't know what he's doing, but he's making money.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how, but somehow it's coming in. So talk to me about those first like profits that you started making, like the big ones where you're like, okay, there's for sure something here.
You know, I don't want to be completely honest with them, because holding that type of cash as a 18, 19-year-old, and look, I was a late bloomer with women, and I remember, just going out and being the guy everybody wanted to hang with, and having, thousands of dollars on me with my boys, and it was a great feeling.
Yeah.
I thought it was a real feeling.
Yeah.
But, a lot of it was, fake.
So this was pre-age 21, right?
Yeah.
So when you say going out, you mean
we were able to get in clubs in New York City by the time we were 19 and 20.
Okay.
Yeah, with fake IDs and whatnot. And I was the guy everybody wanted to hang out with. And so I took full advantage of it.
Yeah.
And
which what young kid wouldn't?
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was honest to a degree. My dad and my uncle back then knew that there's some real money coming, and they wanted to make sure I paid taxes and did everything I had to do the right way, so there wasn't a problem, which I did.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, like I said, there was, that imposter syndrome. I needed it. I wanted all that cash in my pocket. I wanted to be the first one that had a credit card at a certain age and be able to slap it down and know that it's going to go through.
Right. Right. So where along this journey, what age did you start doing these memorabilia autograph signings?
That was at 20. I sold the baseball card company.
Oh, you sold it. You
I
actually
sold
had
it.
to exit.
I sold this on my mailing list, whatever assets were left as far as the collection for $1 million,
Okay.
and jumped right into the sports and
When you were
entertainment memorabilia industry. And I did that for about 4.5, 5 years. And that industry was great because it allowed me to meet all these superstars that eventually formed those relationships.
Yeah.
Then the next step was print marketing group.
So ins and outs of that business, just real quick, just for some context, what exactly, like I say, memorabilia and autograph signing, what exactly did you do, and how
We would pay different athletes and celebrities, Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Pamela Anderson. They would sit in a hotel room for a couple hours, autograph hundreds or thousands of items, and they'd be contracted to be paid a certain amount of money, and that was it.
And was this something that they were already doing, and they just need somebody to?
No, we actually, I'd like to think back then, we almost created an industry in a way, and these celebrities found it like the easiest money ever. Sometimes they would keep it for themselves, sometimes they would donate it to their favorite charity. And we would go out and market the product to different vendors, companies, memorabilia stores.
And who was the first bigger name that you?
Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
I went for the biggest in
And
the world.
how do you land that as a
So,
20-year-old?
My friend Jeff Hamilton, a revered leather jacket designer, I was with him on Christmas, was good friends with the guy Harlan Warner, who I was also with on Christmas.
And how did you meet
And
Jeff?
I met Jeff at the Super Bowl in 1992 in Minneapolis. I was sitting front row on the 50-yard line. He was 2 rows behind me, and he just looked like a rock star. He had these outrageous looking jackets, and I walked over to him and told him what business.
That was your Dallas one, right?
That was the Redskins Buffalo Bills.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And we exchanged numbers. We formed a friendship. I went out to see him. I'll never forget this. My ex-girlfriend and I broke up. We were both devastated. It was like I was 21 or 22. And he's like, come out here, come spend the weekend with me. He goes, don't sit at home and be depressed. And had I not gone to LA, this is the crazy thing, Prince Marketing Group wouldn't exist to this day.
That's so
because we hung out at his office, and that's when Harlan Warner walked in, who was Muhammad's agent.
Gotcha.
So I remembered a year later when I wanted to get into the memorabilia business, I called him up and I'm like, remember that guy Harlan that I met?
Gotcha.
How do I get in touch with him to do a signing with Muhammad Ali?
Okay, so that business, you were still doing baseball cards at that time.
Yep.
So you see this guy and you're like, he seems like he knows what he's doing.
Yep.
So you go create a friendship.
Yep.
just randomly fly out to LA because you're going through something with a bad breakup.
Yep.
Then you meet this guy coincidentally, right? Just
Yep.
walks in and it's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. Don't
Exactly.
even think about it.
I don't
A
even
year
think about
later,
it.
you
I
sell
just
the
thought it was
business.
cool.
You're
I
starting
was
to
a
sell the
young
business.
kid that represents Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
You know?
So then you call up this guy who obviously you had done a good enough job building a good relationship with, where he felt comfortable giving you access to his network.
Exactly.
And then booked the first memorabilia signing. Went
Yep.
super well.
Yep.
And then you started getting intros to other people that way.
That's it. I just started leveraging. You talk about leveraging and networking. Muhammad Ali's the most famous man on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
No kidding.
you know, the reason they call him the greatest of all time.
Right.
You know, he's probably one of the top 3 influential figures the past 100 years in the world. You know, he had a bigger post-career, you know, with the Parkinson's and Goodwill Ambassador around this earth than anybody.
Right.
Not even close.
Right.
And so I just went right for the biggest. So when I'm calling up other agents, back then you got to remember there was no internet.
Yeah.
So when I'm tracking down other agents and telling them Muhammad Ali's worked with us, that was it.
How do they say no?
That was it. How can I
Like
say
you've
no?
already proven it with the
With the
top
biggest
guy
name in the world.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So lots to unpack here, but I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the relationship thing, because this is something that I've been trying to just pound in the head of my listeners since I started the show. Was the fact that relationships are so in the clouds, meaning it's an abstract concept. So what I mean by that is, like, if I work on my, sales, that directly affects my company, right? That directly affects my business. If I tweak something in my marketing, if I tweak something in my sales process, I increase by whatever percentage, right? There's a direct result, and that's why people give that full attention, which they should.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't give networking full attention and connections full attention because it's abstract. There's no real concrete something to say, like, hey, if you go to this Super Bowl game, you're going to see this guy that you're going to meet. You're going to create a friendship with him. Then you're going to have a random meeting in his office with this other guy. And then a year later, after you sell the business that you have right now, you're going to be working on this other business. You're going to call that guy, get that guy. Like, you can't guarantee that, right? Yeah. So how do you communicate to somebody the importance, like the real importance of building genuine relationships with
If you look at my phone, 10 minutes before I walked in here, I called up Hulk Hogan, who's been a client for almost 20 years. Had back surgery, he's healing, it's been all over the world news. 3 times on the call we say, I love you. Not a single word about business.
Wow.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Because if you build that personal trust and that bond and respect, you find out about their likes, their dislikes. You're there for them when they're struggling in life. You're there cheering when things are good. You find out about their families, their special interests, their hobbies, and you pay attention to that stuff. It's super easy. People don't realize it. My assistant Joy will tell how many times we send flowers to different people, or little gifts or gift certificates, whatever it takes, because that's what separates you from the rest of them. Anybody can be in business to just network and make money.
Yeah.
My dad taught me at such a young age that when these celebrities would be in town or I'd be on the road with them, I got to find a way to do room service, have lunch, take them for dinner, whatever it might be. And he's like, because that just makes you different. Because it's not just about business, it's about life. And eventually I bring my family around the environment, as I talk about in my book with Magic Johnson. And it was a game changer. I mean, to this day, Ric Flair calls me up on Christmas with his wife. Same thing. I love you, man. I go, no, champ. He goes, Darren, let me finish. It's like, let me finish. He goes, you have been there for me since, the beginning. I can't. Last night, Carmen Electra and I, 3 hours on the phone. I had to go get her some medication for an implant that she has to get done today with the dentist. Dennis Rahman calls me on Friday night. Love you, brother. It's going to be a big year for us, and love your mom and your sister. And to me, that's what it's about at this point. Anybody can make my people money, and I think in any business, if it's a successful company, you can make money. But not everybody's got the ability to have that personal, special bond for somebody.
Do you think that's something that you've spent a lot of time cultivating, or do you think that's something natural?
I think it's a little bit of both. The writer, Kristen McGinnis, who I love, Kristen, and Anna David, the publisher of my book, she came up with something that was so profound to me in the book, where she's like, I realized at a certain point in my career, I had a special talent for dealing with special talent. It just comes so natural to me at this point, where it doesn't matter who. I saw Denise Richards Thursday. I went to see her husband. to get something done, some medical stuff, and I see her coming out of the bathroom. 10 minutes we're sitting there talking, same thing. Love you, the best to everybody. That means more to me than anything. I was at Charlie Sheen's house 3 weeks ago, him and I watching TV for an hour.
Yeah.
Love you, brother. I texted him on Christmas, same thing I can show you. I said, I call him Sheenus. I said, Sheenus, love you, brother. Looking forward to a great year together, yada, yada. And he replies back, I love you more. That's says it all,
It seems like you have a really great way of making it all about them. And in a world where they're used to people just making it all about themselves, how do you think that plays into it? And what lessons can we take away from it?
I don't have an ego. I put that aside a long time ago. And again, Julia and my sister were talking about that this morning. I'm so good being the man behind the man or the man behind the woman. And I think that's the key for me. I don't need to be front and center. I can get front and center anytime I want.
Yeah.
Anytime I want. My media contacts are the best in the world.
Yeah.
I can call whoever it is, but it's look at the array of celebrities, even the ones that are gone. Evel Knievel, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, Burt Reynolds, so many over the years. So our database is incredible, but it's not what it's about. Yeah. Let them shine. Yeah. Let them be who they're supposed to be. And let me be comfortably being the guy behind the scenes to allow them. And when they're hurting, if I need to get front and center, that's when I'm going to do it. I'm going to be out there taking bullets for them. Yeah. And so they could sit back and regroup and do what they got to do.
How do you go about, I think it's a special skill to go about finding what people want when sometimes they even can't articulate what they want. Is that something that you feel like is a big part of what you do, or do you just really listen to what they say they want and just provide that for them?
No, I give a lot of input. Okay. Magic Johnson and I were, about a week and a half ago, we had his last speaking engagement on his plane, and 30, 40 minutes, we're going back and forth business ideas and things we're going to work on this year, and I can never just be someone that just listens. I got to bring more to the table than just that. I think if somebody's doing that, just to listen to their customer, they're doing it wrong. Because again, taking that extra initiative and educating yourself and getting more know-how on whatever that trade or that field or profession is, to give feedback, intellectual feedback, completely separates you from everybody else.
There's one thing that I've found to be a big difference maker between people who are really good at building relationships and people who are kind of spammy, or on the opposite end, get taken advantage of. And I think there's something to this, and that is the ability to ask when you know that you need something. And I find that that's something that you've done pretty well, especially when it comes to this book and with the sobriety stuff, is that you were never shying away from just being totally honest and just asking for a little bit of help when you needed it. But to be clear, the majority of the time, you're always the one out front giving, right? You're giving. And then every once in a while, you have an ask. Can you talk about how to ask somebody for something when you know you need something?
The testimonies on the book say it all. Magic Johnson wrote the foreword. Yeah. My biggest, most important client, my big brother. Prince Marketing Group wouldn't exist without him. And
and that's a perfect example, by the way.
I don't ask those favors, but I knew, like you said, talking to him, as I mentioned in the book, about my struggle, about the pain that I was in, about this dark, dark world that I was living in, and seeing the way he embraced me and how compassionate and sensitive he was. It just took the biggest weight off my shoulder, knowing that I had him no matter what. And then, the amazing thing was, as my social media guy, Patrick Anino, found out when we started getting all the testimonies, and we look at the back, we got Hulk, Dennis Rodman, Jeannie Buss from the Lakers, who I love dearly, Mark Cuban, the list goes on and on. Everybody started giving testimonies. Noah Tepperberg, Jason Strauss, the biggest nightlife, hospitality gurus in the world that knew me when I was a party animal. It just shows you how much this impacts people. Yeah, right. And it's not just about the drugs and the substances, it's the fact that you can go through hell and come out on the other side. Right. And I think that's what it meant to so many people, that, adversity actually reveals your character. And like Evel Knievel used to say, he was a winner. He goes, I failed a lot more times by falling off my bike and crashing than I ever succeeded. He goes, but Darren, he goes, this son of a bitch got up every goddamn time, and that's what's going to define my legacy. And I never forgot that.
You mentioned that Prince Marketing Group would not exist without Magic Johnson. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story?
So I was fishing with my dad. I was on the balls of my ass financially, as people could read in the book. I made a big legal mistake with the memorabilia business, and I was down to my last 3 grand. So I took my
Unknowingly, by the way.
What's that?
An unknowingly legal
Unlegally,
mistake.
yeah. So I took my dad on a fly fishing trip to Alaska, and he goes, "What's your next move, boy?" And I said, "Well, I want to basically, I would love to be an agent, but I'm not a lawyer. How can I make this happen? I'm too old to go to law school." He goes, "Lawyer, what are you talking about?" He goes, "You know more people than any entertainment lawyer." He goes, "Just ask somebody to be your first client." And I was like, "Who?" It's like, "Son, it's what you know. It's who you know in life, not what you know. Speak to Magic. You know, he's always been there for you. He's with you during this whole, legal issue." And it's like, it's not a bad idea. And so about a month later, we're in Detroit, and it was almost like fate. He always traveled with people, and this trip he traveled by himself, and he called my hotel room and said, "Hey, boy, knock on my door in 20 minutes. We'll head over to this appearance." And I knocked a couple minutes early, walk in. He's got this big, huge table in his suite, looked like a king, fit for a king, which he is. And he tells me to sit down because he knew I just got back from the trip with my dad. He knew I was struggling financially, and I said, "What's going on?" And I remember I just took this big, deep breath because I was like, this is one of those moments in life. If I don't go for it, I'm going to regret it forever. And I'm like this. And I told him, I said, "Look, I had a talk with Dad, and I wonder if you would work with me if I started an agency now." And he's like, "I love you. I love your parents." He goes, "I love what you represent. You're a good person that made a bad mistake. I know all about making bad mistakes." He's like, "You got to get yourself a good entertainment lawyer because it's not how successful I become, Darren. It's how successful you and everyone else around you becomes, because that's what life's about. And you better start using my name to sign every celebrity you can, because in 2 years, if I'm not happy with the direction Prince Marketing Group is going in, I'm going to let you go." And it was on at that point. I was like, I left the room and I'm thinking, did you just tell me to exploit him? Is that really what he just told me to do? Exploit his name? That's exactly what I did.
And that's exactly what he told you
And I was broken, man. I had no money.
Yeah.
It was...
For the first time since you were like 14.
Since I was 14.
Yeah.
Yep. It was just amazing how he just came through like Superman for me.
Yeah. Can you even describe, like put into words, the emotions leaving the room, right? Coming into the room, anxiousness, nervousness, a little bit of that stuff going on, leaving the room, anything?
It just did so much for me because, to be so broken, to be on so top of the world, but again, always having that imposter syndrome, and then finally realizing, well, maybe I was a loser the whole time. Maybe I was that kid in the back of the room. Maybe, I'll never start a business again in my life, and maybe it was just luck. And then just to see the way he just embraced me and didn't think twice about it. Wow, it did so much for my business self-esteem. It was incredible. Yeah.
Again, normalizing it, right? Like taking what you thought was like a devastating failure, and then he just didn't even acknowledge it as a thing. He was just like, "Oh yeah, well, stuff happens." Right. Okay, so coming in from that initial meeting, where do you go from there? Like, did you have any idea how to be a sports agent? What was your next move?
No, what I did was I brought on a couple of investors, and we started running ads in like the Robb Report and DuPont Registry, some of the more affluent magazines, Sports Business Journal, and making a name for ourselves. Okay. And little by little, it just started happening within a year or two. And we found out there's the internet came out like a couple years later, and there was this IMDb where it has agents, you could register your name, and leads would start coming in from that. We'd get trade papers every week, like I said, like Sports Business Journal, Hollywood Reporter, and we would just read up on different branding deals. We'd reach out to different companies, and little by little, it started happening. It was just unbelievable.
How long did it take you after the meeting with Magic to book another A-list client?
It happened quick. My second one was Joe Frasier.
Okay. That's a pretty big second one.
So,
was that
the other half of Ali, and then it was Pamela Anderson and Chevy Chase. And Pam was in her peak.
Were all these through intros or?
No, these were all because I did signings with them.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so gotcha. What I started doing is I'd go back to each one of them and I said, "Hey, I'm getting out of the memorabilia business, but I'm starting this agency. We're going to do much bigger projects now. It's going to be commercials and corporate events and speaking engagements. Are you interested?"
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Of course."
So let me ask you this. How do you make sure that you are not the agent that they had before you called them?
How am I different, you mean?
Yeah, like how do you make sure that some other kid who has a lot of drive and hustle doesn't just call through your, because obviously these people had agents, right? And you were just calling them and saying like, hey, I have an agency now. Do you want to sign with me? And they said yes. So you obviously made a big enough impact on them for them to be able to leave who they were currently working with and come work with you and stick with you for all these years. So
Yeah, I
what is
mean,
that thing?
Magic had Lon Rosen, who's very near and dear to me. He's one of my mentors. Lon was, they still work together. He's one of the biggest assets of Magic's career, too. And we just had a special bond for each other. And he started working with a different agency. And there was no, love loss. He knew I was doing projects with him. And, Pam had a manager. She really never had a marketing agent.
Oh, really?
So it was
Wow.
actually something unique. Chevy was an actor, same sort of thing. The manager was working on marketing opportunities here and there, but they really never had anybody specific. So it wasn't even like stepping on toes. It was like,
really?
I was the perfect complement to what they already had.
Got it.
Yep.
So would you say that you created another industry then?
Exactly. I created a whole other revenue stream for all of them.
Okay, got it. So now do you see a lot of people popping up doing something similar to what you do? Because this is essentially sports marketing, which is a little bit
Sports
different
entertainment
than
marketing.
management, right?
Yeah.
So did you start realizing that other people started popping up and being like, hey, I'll market that for you too?
Yeah, but again, we were in so early that our contacts were, so much, we're so much more connected than
Oh, and the
competitors.
credibility
That
through the
and the
roof.
credibility is everything.
Yeah, yeah. So I know this is something that you talk about on like a lot of different interviews that you've done and stuff. I was prepping for this, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali meeting.
Yeah.
Can you give us an overview of that story? It's just such a legendary, timeless moment that happened.
It's so special. I never get sick of talking about it. In fact, the girl that I'm seeing, she just had her family at my place a little while ago, and I had to ask the dad, because I love speaking to men overseas that are over 50 to get their perspective what Ali Frazier meant.
Yeah.
And the engagement, and you saw the picture. He knew where he was on March 8th, 1971.
That's
the
crazy.
world stopped that night.
Wow.
It was the only time the Vietnam War stopped, when Ali and Frazier got in the ring, the two greatest undefeated heavyweight kings.
Yeah.
That's how impactful they were, politically, culturally, historically. It was so much more than boxing. So it's something that always, it's so near and dear to me. And the crazy part about it, as I talk about it in the book, I was in the right mindset for it because I still had that imposter syndrome. So I had the relationship with both of them. I knew this historic happening was going down. I got a call from Lonnie Ali, and she said, Muhammad wants to have dinner with you guys. Can you, Joe, and Marvis come? And Joe was in the mood. He was ready. He was in Philadelphia, his hometown. He felt comfortable. He didn't think Ali was going to screw him over.
Because you tried to set it up before that.
Tried setting up, and Joe wouldn't do it. They wanted to take us to the Ali premiere and ride in the limo with Will Smith and Muhammad, and Joe went nuts. He wanted no part of it. It was the only time I ever got in a fight with him over the phone. Hung up on me, and the hurt was so bad. The distrust was so bad.
That's crazy.
And he goes, you tell that motherfucker, if he wants to meet me, it's got to be on my goddamn turf. I'm like, you make it sound like you guys are still fighting. He goes, I'll knock that son of a... It's like, all right. I just let it go. And, so I got the call, and I had to go back to the room for a couple hours to get changed. And the only thing I knew how to do was to get high.
Okay.
Because I couldn't believe this was going down.
Yeah.
So I chopped up a bunch of Percocets and Vicodins, and I snorted them. Because how could Darren Prince, this Jewish kid with a learning disability from suburbia New Jersey, be in a position right now where Nelson Mandela, presidents, the biggest musical stars, athletes on the planet, would do anything to be in that room? How am I the one that's orchestrating this right now? And I didn't feel worthy for a second, yet these two kings of kings, loved and respected me more than I ever loved and respected myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an insane lesson right there. Huge takeaway. Can you, at that point then, because I know initially they sat together in the stands, right? But you were sitting in the middle of it.
I was sitting dead center courtside with them.
Yeah. And so Joe leans over to you and says what?
So we walk into the stadium, and it's nuts. Diddy's there with his son Justin at the time, Jay-Z, Beyonce. It was mayhem. Justin Timberlake's dating Britney Spears. Everyone's trying to get near them.
Plus all the NBA All-Stars.
You know, I got Michael Jordan at center court with Allen Iverson and Kobe, and they're like this. They're looking at us like they just can't even believe what's going on. And so, but what happened was first I walk in, and it's me, Joe, and my boy Nick Cardasco, who's one of my business partners and agent. So I'm in seat 2, Joe's in seat 3, and Nick's in seat 4. Place is going bananas when Joe walks in. Lionel Richie, I mean, everybody's attacking him. So we had to get security around him to keep the celebrities away because it got so bad.
Wow.
It's his hometown. He's the king of Philly, you know? And all of a sudden you start hearing the chant. And there was nothing like him. I've been in the building with him. I've seen the biggest stars in the world become kids. You hear the Ali, 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 and he's coming, he's shaking, he's got this red polo sweater on, and I mean, he's with Howard Bing, his best friend, his late photographer who just passed away. And man, it was just to be there. And then Muhammad sits right down next to me. I was like, I can't believe this is in 145 countries right now. And he goes like this to me. And Howard leans over, gives me a fist pound. I'm freaking out. By the way, I was high.
Yeah.
Because again, how can I deal with this?
You have to have the high.
Joe leans over. I'll never forget it. I go, yeah. He goes, yo, boss, man. This is what you call me. He goes, switch with me. And I'm out of my effing mind. I'm like, oh my God, it's going down right here. And I literally start crying. Even Nick, we're just like, oh my God, like I can't believe now for the world to see. And so now it's Joe Muhammad, Alicia Keys is singing the America the Beautiful, and she looks at both of them like this, just blowing kisses, because she can't even believe that she's got this opportunity now. But it took over the game. It took over the biggest all-star game in all the sports. And Muhammad's holding up Joe. Vice versa, Joe's holding up Muhammad, and I mean they're totally entwined, and everybody sits, and because it was a little bit hard for Muhammad to sit because he was overweight, and Joe had to lock his leg in. He was bloated from the medication for Parkinson's. They were literally the last two standing, and the spotlight just goes on them.
Wow.
And the place erupts. Everybody gets up again. You see Michael and Diddy comes over with his son, and they were just, this is just history. Yeah. And the classiest, most beautiful man I ever met in my life, Muhammad goes like this. This is tough for me to get out, but he goes, champ. And Joe leans over, he goes, yeah, champ. I was like, oh my God, they just acknowledged each other, the highest respect, to call each other champ in that moment. And back and forth was just, he goes, we're still two bad brothers, aren't we? And I was like, oh, it was just so, they were just,
it was like a movie script.
They were, I've seen Pacino, De Niro, Spielberg, Dustin Hoffman, Mel Gibson. I've seen them all, like literally little kids around these guys. Yeah. So when I see other celebrities now that don't have that couth, that way to deal with your fans, like it was just most amazing. I mean, they were just cut from a different cloth. They were just so classy. They were the first ones to get to an airport. Every single kid, every single autograph, every single photograph. They would spend time with people. They knew they were kings for a reason. Yeah. You know, and they changed the world, you know, just to experience that in that moment, just to see the conversations that was going on, and the look, and they're holding hands, and it was, you know, still to this day, it's the greatest professional experience I'll ever have. Yeah. Nothing will ever come close to it. Nothing.
That's amazing. I love, I mean, obviously I heard that story multiple times preparing for this interview, and I still felt like I needed to ask about it because of how amazing of a moment it was and how historical, legendary. How do you, you've been able to experience just so many amazing things and hang out with some of the world's most amazing, incredible, interesting people. How do you move from moment to moment without almost becoming desensitized to awesome things? Like how do you sit in an interview right now and talk about, you know, whatever, or go to a meeting after this and get on a phone call, like do all the mundane things? How do you do those things without losing the awe of what life has to offer because you've been exposed to some of those just exponentially amazing experiences?
You know, I just think to keep things in perspective, you know, and for me, I'm happier when I'm not around that life. You know, it's a job at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, it's a career that I've made. And, you know, for me, it's about just hanging out with my friends or, you know, anybody that just takes me away from that is unbelievable. Your friend Sarah, we were with Magic about a week and a half ago, and once we got off the plane, we went to the airport to go to Tampa. I looked at her, I go, oh, you have no idea what a relief this is. She's like, why? And I told her, I'm like, there's just such a freedom in a sense to just be chilling with you or my boys and just get away from it. You know, because when you live it and you breathe it and you sleep it,
Right.
this is everything to me. We're gonna have 3 days to just freaking get the heck away from everything, you know? And my boy Nicky C, we can go for dinner, sushi, just walk around the mall. It's amazing. Like, once I get Hulk Hogan back on that plane, and there's 300 Hulkamaniacs in the freaking airport with their shirts and they're looking for stuff to get to him, and I get him on that plane and I know he's safe, it's just such a relief.
Right.
You know, so, you know, that awesomeness, whatever people call it, I mean, I haven't lost sight of dealing with once-in-a-lifetime experiences every day in my life. I understand it because I still see people's reactions.
Right.
And that's a blessing that I'm able to make that happen. I love when people are less fortunate. I love when charities need assistance. I love that the handicapped person needs to meet one of my people at an event, a corporation, because that's such a blessing. That's what keeps me going, to see when I can turn the lights on in somebody's eyes, or a mother or father that's been struggling with their child that's got cerebral palsy, because I've seen it again and again. And I can ask Magic to spend 15 minutes with them and change the world.
Yeah.
Or Hulk Hogan to light him up with the kid and flex. I mean, that's what gets me going, those
love
moments.
that. So in addition to that, I know that now one of your biggest callings in life, one of the biggest things that gives you joy, that I've heard you say plenty of times, is now the work that you do with sobriety and with this book. So can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, I found my pain, through my pain in life, I found my purpose. And, you know, it's just such a blessing every single day. There's a different text message, inbox, a social media post, something to our website, our business social media about, you know, I bought Mr. Prince's book, or I read your book, you changed my life, you saved my son's life, my daughter's life. And it still sometimes feels, like I was talking to my sister Joy this morning, the emotions with it is unbelievable. Alex, you know, sent a text this morning about it. It is just the most amazing gift I've ever been given, because so many people out there are struggling. And the fact that I was able to turn my darkest days into the brightest lights, that I think God had a bigger plan for Darren Prince. And I think the way it all went down, like I said, it was perfect. I wouldn't have changed anything, because I've never been in a better place in my life. You know, I truly just love my life. Everything from personal relationships to the business to my recovery advocacy. I didn't expect, like Magic said, that you became a superstar in the world of recovery. That's not me. You know, it's not somebody that wanted to set out that way, but me and my recovery brothers and sisters that I like to say on Mount Rushmore of recovery advocates: Chris Herron, Tim Ryan, Jennifer Jimenez, Ryan Hampton, Anna David, you know, Randy Grimes, you know, we're all out there pushing this message constantly, dozens, hundreds of speaking engagements a year, depending on who we are. Schools, charity events, galas, TV show appearances, colleges.
Yeah.
Because sobriety is a gift, and I've said it before, this is a gift that I gotta work out one day at a time. And just because I got it today, I want to be that spiritual, centered person. I want to be able to be the best person I can be. I need to listen to people. It's not always about what I'm feeling. And Darren's behavioral patterns. If somebody makes a suggestion, try to understand instead of being understood. You know? Instead of just always being that guy that gets what I want when I want it. Because that's what I'm used to, because my Frasier drive. Like, learn to take a deep breath and take a step back. Because I think that's going to continuously get me to my higher self. And in the heat of an argument, remember this: say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean. And watch what happens. Hey, you don't have that emotional hangover. You didn't just blow up to your wife or girlfriend or your brother or sister, whatever it might be. People forget these little teeny things. And it still work. I mean, I have to hit my 12-step meetings 5-6 days a week still to be around my spiritual brothers and sisters. And the biggest key for me, like I said, is my ego. A lot of new people have come into my life in the past 6 months, personally, professionally, and I always say, I don't need to talk about myself. What are you up to? I said, this is what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
The world's going to tell you what they think about Darren Prince. I don't need to, I think I've solidified my reputation and my legacy. And it's only growing from here. And really now, it's strictly about recovery. Because the business part, the Prince marketing group side, that's bullcrap. That's what I do. The real gift of my legacy is about changing and saving lives one day at a time. And it's been a privilege. Touching high school kids, man. We've had some experiences in rooms and auditoriums that have just been mind-blowing. What happens in front of hundreds of kids and somebody gets that breakthrough because of something I said.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Because I don't have kids right now, but I know that I'm saving some mommy and daddy's children with my message.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I could keep asking you questions for a really long time. So if I don't cut it off at some point, I'm just going to keep going. I usually ask this one question before I get off of any interview, but you already answered it. I always ask people if it's who you know or if it's what you know, and I ask them to explain why. So you already said earlier in the interview that you believe it's who you know, not what you know. So can you give us a quick explanation of why you think that that's the case?
Well, because it's the people that are going to get you places a lot more than the education. And we spoke before, Lewis Howes, my boy, Gary Vee, Jay Shetty. These guys are changing the world right now, with their messages. And I don't think any of them are going to tell you, I have a bachelor's degree, or no, they found themselves around the right people and they knocked doors down and they grinded it out and they leveraged the heck out of those relationships to get to where they are right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. We got one quick thing here for you. We'll let you go. This is the random round. Okay. I've asked this ever since I started the show 300 and whatever episodes ago. And so really excited to hear your answers. Really quick, random questions, quick, random answers. Ready? What profession, other than your own, do you think that it would be fun to attempt?
Other than the one that I'm in right now?
Assuming you could take any skill set in the world like that.
It would probably have to be something in sales.
Okay. If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and chat for an hour, who would it be?
My dad.
How do you like to consume content? Books, audiobooks, blogs, podcasts, videos?
For myself, I'm still like old school books.
Reader. Is there a book or two that you would say, like, man, whatever you do, you got to read this one?
I'm a big Joel Osteen's a dear friend of mine, Joel and Victoria. I think anything he's written, Tony Robbins.
Okay.
I think that's what people need in today's world. They need to be inspired. They need to create their own breakthroughs, challenges, and realize, like Tony says, that it's not what you do once in a while that makes those changes. It's what you do consistently on a daily, action that makes them.
Give us a glimpse of your morning routine.
Going to the gym, usually hitting a 12-step meeting, hanging out with my dog, and usually start everything after that about 8:30, 9 in the morning.
Perfect. What is something, besides business, setting business aside, what is something that you are just not very good at?
Dancing. But I know we're going to be doing a bunch of it at my 50th birthday. My friends make fun of me. I don't think I'm that bad, though.
I'm pretty bad, so.
I think I can hold my own. I'll find out. You two will be there. You'll let me know.
That's not in my strengths book, that's for sure. What is your go-to pump-up song?
My go-to pump-up song. I've had a couple new ones lately that I kind of get into my head before I speak. Thunderstruck by AC/DC gets me going, but especially when it's a big, big crowd, I get myself into my zone. There's a bunch of them, but that one's been recent.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to, is that the song they play when you come out on stage as well?
Do they have one when I come out?
Yeah.
No, it's more just my intro video, which has certain background music to it that my IT guy played that kind of gets me going too.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, as we get everything wrapped up here, my man, what is one place online where we can find you active the most?
Okay, so it's officialdarrenprince.com.
Okay.
I also just started my own 501c3, so anybody that is near and dear to addiction, recovery, mental health issues, it's aiming high foundation.org and Instagram @agent_DP.
Awesome. So for everything that you got going on, check out Darren's website. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this right now, definitely go pick up a copy of his book, Aiming High. I promise you will find some inspiration there. Even if addiction is something that you struggle with currently, the inspirational stories and stuff that you share in there are more than enough reason to go pick it up right now. Do not wait. Somebody told me one time, Darren, is whenever anybody recommends a book to you, buy it right then. And I've done that basically ever since then. Anytime somebody recommends me a book, I'll buy it right then. I'll put it on my shelf, and I'll at least have it so I can get back to it. So if you're watching, listening, buy the book right now. Don't wait, and at least add it to your list for 2020. I promise you will not regret that. Darren, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Thanks,
it was
my
such
brother.
a pleasure having you.
Appreciate it.